Right, it's -2 outside, it's got ridiculous, so we've come inside. It's on the bench. We got a fantastic light in here, so that makes it look even more filthy than ever. We're about to start the reassembly. I've got to take this gasket off, so that's the job I'm going to do tonight. So here's the gasket set. Have a little dive in and see what we got. We have got something that looks like the gasket I've just pulled off, and we've got the O-rings, and we've got some new exhaust manifold gaskets by the looks of it, and I think that is it for, I think it's about 70 odd quid, but I think that's all I need. Cheers Glenn for ordering that. Just going to clean this surface up a little bit more, because you can see that it's a bit of residue from the old gasket. Well, I'm really glad I came inside, because not only is it warmer, but the light in here is so much better. So I've been able to give all of this a good clean up. I've cleaned all the pots, made sure all the cylinders are all wiped out. I've cleaned the surfaces here, and same on the other side, and I've cleaned these faces up as well. So all it remains now is to pop that gasket on. So it was that way down on the previous one, and it only fits one way round. So let's see whether we can negotiate that into place. So tonight I'm going to try and get these barrels on. Bit of two-stroke oil, everything's all cleaned up. I've put the gasket on ready, so it's just rested on there. So yeah, let's have a little go at this. Bit more rag. Ooh. A bit of good work round. Feels pretty good. And we'll put some on the piston. Right, fingers crossed. Well, fingers crossed, we're just going to do it. So get these rings lined up on the gap, so they close up. This piston up at top dead centre. Going to get this pot on, it's nicely lubricated, and then we're going to try and squeeze the rings in, lower it down, stand on one leg, rub your head, pat your tummy, and all those other things. Apparently you can give it slight twisted movements, but not too much, in case it picks up on one of the ports, and it should drop down like that magically, so the manual says. Just try not to pinch the gasket. Well, that's the hardest part, is avoiding the gasket. Just bring the gasket up onto the ball so it doesn't get sliced against the edge. Number one on. Let's repeat that then. Let's offer that up. Give it a bit of a squeeze. Are we in? I think we're in. And there it goes. That's pretty typical. The GoPro went flat just as it was dropping into place. So there it goes again. That's the glory work. First, I also need to put on the manifold, exhaust manifold. Finger tight, apparently. So I'll bolt those up. That should then secure these faces so that they're all lined up quite nicely. So I've cleaned up the faces of the exhaust manifold, so there's nothing on there to stop things from lying flat. These surfaces are all cleaned up. got to make sure that I bolted on the right way now. So I think I did that last time, it was a bit embarrassing. So it goes on that way. So the EGTs are facing downwards. I'm just going to pop the bolts back in and hand tighten them up. So I haven't got all these bolts in yet, but what I am seeing is this gap between the two pots is well out. So I think there's going to need to be some sort of reference to set these pots apart, but let's get things a little bit tighter in position and see whether the manifold gives me the reference I need. I've hand tightened all of the exhaust manifold bolts up, and what I am seeing is I can pull this right together, so there'll be no clearance in there at all. The bolts are dropped in. I haven't tightened them down at all yet, but they're in their holes. So whether that would then pull apart as they were torqued up, I don't know. What I am going to do is I'll just drop my reference on. Another idea that Alan Child gave me was to drop the head on and just make sure all of the bolts line up on the head, which gives you the spacing back as well. So I'm going to go get my socket set, and I'm going to just loosely tighten everything up until I think I've got things lining up in this angle that they need to be, because obviously these need to be perfectly in alignment with the manifold and nicely spaced to suit the head, and then we can start to just tighten things down until everything agrees with one another. So there's my bolts all prepped up, bit of lithium grease under each one of the heads and just one of each cylinder that needs some Loctite 232. So the other ones are over here ready to go. So I'm going to pop the bolts in. The ones with the Loctite go in this back corner here. The other one with the Loctite on this side. Just tighten them down a little bit. Definitely is a little bit closer on the back than it is on the front. That one doesn't want to go in. That one's not so keen either. Oh, let's just loosen these up again. Okay, so let's space that back out and let's see whether it pulls back in a bit. Right, well, that's good. We're going to do this crossways. Just going to nip these all up. Just loosely. We introduce the torque wrench. This doesn't come out very often. A set of 15, so these have got to go down to 24 Newton meters. I'm going to start at 15 though. I'm going to tighten them up crossways. Right, I took these out again. So I'm popping them back in. Again, I've looked in the grooves, made sure everything's nice and tidy, which it is. And there we have it. So the next job will be to put the head back on. So that goes on that way, if I remember correctly. This is the sequence for tightening up the head bolts. I've just flipped it over there because we're going to be working on the exhaust side. So yeah, they are labelled there 1 to 12, 22 Newton meters for each bolt. So as before, each one of these bolts needs just a little bit of this lithium grease underneath just to help it bed in. But in the case of the ones where I've got brackets to be mounted, such as for the radiator, like this, just got a bit of this red RTV gasket maker, so I'm going to put a little bit underneath where it seats onto the head, and then a little bit on the top where the bolt pinches up, just to make sure that we don't get any water creeping up through and seeping out on those. So I'm going to put them on these 4 here, a bit of RTV, and I've got this additional one just here where the mount goes for my exhaust bracket. Okay, so I've prepared all the tops. There's RTV on the required holes, so I can start popping these in. I've put lithium grease on the bolts, just on the heads where I needed it, as you can see there, and then RTV on the bolts that are going to go on the accessories, like this. 12 Newton meters, number 1. Number 5. Now up to 22. 22 Newton meters. Right, that is your head torqued down. I'm just going to put some stuff in the spark plug holes. Now it's permanently fixed, and clean up all these bits of lithium, and then we can start putting all the bits back on.